We're starting to. We're like doing this thing where we act like we haven't started, but we really have. So you guys can see like the background of shit. This podcast is brought to you by Mary Jane Sunshine. For those of you that likes your energy and to bake, check out Supercuz on social media. Type in, you could find your Mary Jane Moonshine, Mary Jane Shroonshine is coming next. And this guy right here, we both own this podcast. We have some major differences, but we've decided to let all that go, put that aside. I'll be back in November. We could handle it then. But today we're focused on Matt Granahan, Phil Baroni, Robert Kennedy, Dakota Cochrane, bare knuckle fighting, and gay porn. Okay, so anyways, we're trying to get Matt Granahan on the line here. Never a dull moment.
So do you really have to come back in November, or like can you just
I'm coming back right now. I've been working with my personal trainer. Look at let's show your guns, compare them to mine. Show them right there. Show them.
I'm good.
I wouldn't. That's like if I pulled my dick out, he wouldn't pull his dick out too, because mine would be bigger. And that's like when I show my guns, you're not going to want to show yours. Look at that. Look at that. We got Granahan yet? Is Granahan on the line? Oh my brother, Matt Granahan. Welcome to the 209 kliqcast, sir. Granahan.
Yeah, can you hear me, brother?
I can hear you, man. We're live. We're on the air. I'm so happy and I'm so thankful to have the king of Connecticut, the man who's connected in every level you can imagine, from politics to professional wrestling to fighting to gangsters, mobsters. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the king of Connecticut, Matt Granahan.
Nice. The West Coast Don's always got it going on, man.
You got that right.
What's going on, my California paisan?
Man, I'm just excited to be able to talk to you. You know, we've known each other for quite some time. You've been involved in so many different things, from Phil Baroni to Bobby Kennedy to politics to Bellator fights to, you know, you've done a lot, and you've been a big help to me over the years, and I'm just glad we could have this conversation.
Let's not forget our brother that passed this past Christmas Eve. Legendary American Psycho, Stephan Bonner. He visited me in a dream Christmas morning. This is a straight up shoot for you. You know, I was watching my daughter sing on Christmas Eve, and I turned my phone off and I turned it on about 2 a.m. and I had all these messages, and I thought, what the fuck is going on? And I go to sleep, and I didn't even read through all the messages. I didn't even grasp mentally what was going on. And I go to sleep, and about 5 a.m. Christmas morning, I get a visit from the American Psycho, Stephan Bonner. And he says to me, in a very weak voice, because he was very weak and tired at that point. He'd had that long stretch in the hospital, and he said to me, he goes, do you know about St. Patrick's lineage? And I said, what? He said, have you studied St. Patrick's lineage? And I get up, I take a leak, and I roll back in bed. It's Christmas morning. We had a long celebration Christmas Eve, and man, I go, I can't sleep. I go, what is it? What's Bonner talking about? I need to call him. And I turn my phone back on, and I want to call Bonner Christmas Eve morning, and I see all these fucking texts, all these people sending this condolences. Of course, Christmas Eve night, I didn't read these texts because I don't want to be bothered with this fucking bullshit. What kind of fucking stunad bothers me? You got a fucking death wish, you're going to bother me Christmas Eve? And I read these messages, man. And then I check the internet and I see, fuck. One of my best friends has passed away. This is not a joke. This is serious. And I go, the fuck was this about, man? He visited me. He said, do you know St. Patrick's lineage? And then I studied it, and I didn't know anything about St. Patrick. I'm Granahan. I'm a quarter Irish, right? I was put on the green hat, and I drink the Irish whiskey and the Guinnesses, and I celebrate St. Patrick's Day, right? But I don't know shit about St. Patrick's, and I study this, right? And I realize St. Patrick wasn't Irish. St. Patrick was tortured by the Irish.
Wow, I
He
never knew
escaped,
that.
and he escaped Ireland. I want all you and all your listeners to listen to this. And I study this. I go, what the fuck? What's he trying? And then it hit me. It hit me like a ton of bricks. He's trying to tell me things aren't as they appear. Things aren't as they appear. And I'm gonna leave it at that. And that's the way it is with a lot of our friends in the last year, brother. And we're gonna get into that here on the podcast.
You know, absolutely. It's been tough. That's a tough one to even talk about. You know, Stephen Bonner, rest in peace. I had my own visitation, but we'll talk about that, you know, another time. But thanks for sharing that. You know, let me segue right into that. You know, his former, you know, tag team partner Phil Baroni, a member of the Real Shooters. You know, you're one of the few people that have actually spoken to Phil. And you know more about this than anybody. So why don't you kind of speak on what's going on with Phil Baroni and this murder case in Mexico?
Yeah, before we do that, we got to hit the rewind button because not a lot of people know this. You know, Phil and we came up very similar. I was like an older brother to Phil. I was like a mentor to Phil. Still am when we get into what's going on today. Phil and I were both Division I collegiate athletes, and we were both wise guys at the same time. And I done things make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. I did things to give you nightmares. But Phil was never a killer, okay? Never a killer. He worked with my man, Johnny Alight. His father was a Gold Star detective, NYPD. I helped get Phil moved to Michigan when he got stabbed up in the back of the head. He was trying to knock some guys out and steal some money on a collection. Phil was an enforcer. He was a collector. He was not a killer, never a killer, and he's never been a killer. And I helped him move to Michigan. And you can one day you'll have Dan Severn on the show, and you can talk about when Phil moved to Michigan and transferred out there to wrestle, and then Dan was going to get Phil in pro wrestling because his great uncle was Lou Albano, and he grew up on Thanksgiving with the Samoans, with the wild Samoans. And Phil had two lives. He was in Massapequa, Long Island, where his stepfather and his mother were next door neighbors of Seinfeld's parents. Obviously money. And then his father was a Gold Star detective who lived in the city. And Phil would go to the city and he'd see a lot of awful things as a preteen, as a young man growing up. And then he'd get involved in a lot of those things. He had a falling out with his dad. He moved in with his dad's best friend, Johnny Alight, who was a hitter for the Gambino family. And Phil did a lot of things. I've done a lot of things. And we're not going to talk about those things, but we're going to say Phil was never a killer. Okay. And I know Phil and his family for a number of years. And years ago, Phil was going to make his return to the cage, fight again for King of the Cage. And I'd been on your show, your old show, Inside BJJ. And I reached out to you, Matt Freeman. And Phil was in a situation in Vegas where things were a little crazy. We're not going to get into the details, but he'd gone through a divorce through Angela, who I did an update with on this case, who's always been in his corner, although they got divorced. And I set him up to move out there with you to your training camp to get ready for this. And Phil spent over 2 years living with you. He won the King of the Cage fight, and he stayed there. And you did pro wrestling together. You tried to give Phil a solid, get him back on track in life, right?
Most
Those
definitely.
were crazy times, and those were crazy times, right? So Freeman,
He's a crazy
3
little-
months, I want to give you the floor. Talk about that. What was that time like? The over 2 years Phil lived with you.
You know, there's a lot of different sides to Phil Baroni. You know, and I would say at first I don't think that Phil Baroni is a murderer either. He's crazy. He's a lot of things, but like you said, a murderer is not one of them. You didn't always see it, but he did have a good heart, and he had a soft side, and he had a crazy, wild, fucking insane side, and you never knew, which side you were going to get. But I would not ever believe he would cold-blooded murder somebody. That's very, 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 very hard for me to believe. He did have a real he had a heart. The Phil was crazy though, man. And I think the King of the Cage went well. I was in his corner. We won that fight. They were rioting. They were literally rioting in outside of the cage. We had to get police escorts out of there. Me, Mark, and Phil. We did it. He was going pro wrestling after he won, and the place went fucking nuts. And that was a wild place. Over there at King of the Cage, we had me and Phil, and we had police escorts, and they wanted to kill us because he was going heel on everybody. He was working up the pro wrestling after he beat this guy. But I would say this, we did the bare knuckle fight, and I'm gonna say something about that with Phil. We both know that Phil had PTSD for sure, and he had it before that fight, and I was trying to help Phil as best as I could. In a perfect world, he wouldn't be fighting anymore, but the world's not perfect. So BKFC gave me one deal, and there was another fight company that gave us another. BKFC was going to offer Phil 3 fights. 2 fights I could handpick the opponent. And it was going to be, a jabroni, tomato can. $7 grand to fight with the knockout bonus. Any probably to knock whoever out they were. Then they were going to give us Bobby Gunn, harder fight. But then this other company comes along and they offer us 50 grand to show, 50 grand if you win, Chris Lieben. Boz Rutan was involved. Jimmy Lennon Jr. was the ring announcer. Other people were there. I was like, dude, I don't think you should be fighting Chris Lieben right now. Like, let's just take this the other fight is less, but we could build and you're going to get easier fights. Phil went for the money, got knocked out, and I could testify to this. He was a lot worse after that fight. He wasn't the same. And Michael Shaw, over here, he could testify too. He was there. He was crazy before. Yeah, he was, but a lot crazier after that fight. But still not a killer. But and then what I'm saying is that I think that knockout and nobody got paid. Nobody got paid. He suffered more brain damage. Didn't get paid for the fight. Got stuck in my house, broken, concussed. So I was literally supporting him for a while. And I think that led to him ending up being in Mexico and being in a bad position that ended up leading for this to happen. If it had not been for the bare knuckle fight where he got screwed over, and I don't think he ever ends up in Mexico. I don't think we're having this conversation right now.
Your house, to be 100% honest.
What's that?
He still beat your house, to be 100% honest.
We even had we'd have started a pro wrestling school. We'd have started an MMA gym, but that was a crucial moment in his life where I think things could have ended up differently.
Yeah, you can't hit the rewind button. We have to live in the present. And what happened there was Angela reached out to me, and I, with a very prominent law firm, we'll get to what I'm doing now towards the end of the show, because it really ties into this. But I was able to contact Ted Berman, who's one of the partners with Berman Law Group, law firm that I'm an investigator for and a podcast host for. I wear a few hats for them. Case runner for, an investigator and podcast host. And they're a very powerful firm, very connected on both sides of the aisle. Just to give you an idea, I've been at 2 $10,000 a plate dinners for Governor DeSantis on one side of the aisle here in Florida. And also number 3 on our executive board sits Frank Biden, the president's brother. So they're enormously powerful. And they put me in touch. Ted directly put me in touch with a fellow who was involved in one of the 3 firms that were involved in successfully suing the NFL with these concussion suits. It also has deep hooks in Mexico, and that's Garcia Group out of San Antonio. And I was able to get Phil, someone there within a few hours of talking to Ted, and Willie called me right away from Garcia Group, and I got Phil to sign for. And this is something that, unless you've watched me do other media, the fans don't know this. Phil was signed for a TBI-CTE suit against the UFC, and it's wild. It's like George Carlin says, when you get it at this level, it's a private club and you ain't in it. And one of the attorneys in our group was very close and a partner in another business with Ari Emanuel that runs Endeavor. So we were very quickly able to get them on board. And then can't name you names, but the who's who of UFC legends from the golden age to sign for this. And they successfully sued the NFL and got the funds for the CTE there. We're emulating the same. So that gives Phil pro bono representation. And we were able to basically save my friend's life, save Phil Baroni's life, because he was in an area of a prison down there that was a deathbed for Americans. And we're able to move him to a safer location. And something that's been misrepresented in other media, because people don't listen to the words that I say. When I say halfway house type situation, I never say he was released to another facility. Halfway house type situation where he's able to, they have a bar, he trains people. It's basically, he's living better than 90% of people in the world right now, because we were able to get them to that safe situation. But that's not permanent. They extort. And there's another channel he's a great guy. He's enormously successful in his documentaries, but he kind of took my words and put his own spin on them. I never said that the family paid exorbitant amounts. If anything, the group of firms are the ones that are ponying that up to keep Phil safe for the time being, right? So it's been crazy. But what a lot of people don't know and don't understand, and let me ask you, gentlemen, have you ever seen the movie Very Bad Things from the 90s?
Yeah, I have.
With Cameron Diaz, right? And Christian Slater, Jeremy Piven, who played Ari Emanuel, who I referenced earlier in the Entourage television series. So the happenings that night were in a hotel suite, and they were very similar to a Very Bad Things type situation. It was a party. There was drugs, there was booze, there were professional women. And Phil, and this is why I wanted you to talk about Phil and your experiences living with him for over 2 years. Phil was in a situation there where he was the perfect patsy. They sent him out to get beer. When he came back, there weren't the folks partying in the suite. There was one dead girl, and Phil immediately ran to get help for this girl. This is what nobody understands or nobody reports. And our investigators on the ground, 2 of them are former district attorneys in Mexico. And they, through our investigation, they found out that Phil was not given an interpreter. He can barely put a sentence together in Spanish. And it was all fugazi. Everything that was put in that police report was all manufactured. And we also have witnesses who can testify if there's ever a trial. And this is another thing that people need to understand. There is never a right to a speedy trial in Mexico. You do not have a right to a speedy trial. There's a number of folks that are down there for 10, 15 years or more. And it's all about extortion. But he was put in that situation where the police report is manufactured, and then the news reports that that's his girlfriend. Well, his girlfriend visits him all the time now, and where he currently is in that halfway house type situation. She's there all the time, and during the course of him being there, they send in pros. I mean, it's part of the deal. And again, I never said that his family was paying hundreds of thousands of dollars. I said that money was paid. His family may have paid some, but you've got to remember these attorneys that retain him. This is what started the flood of signs that I ran to this attorneys group for TBI CTE. We were guests at the last John Jones fight in Las Vegas, and we were given a block of at least 20 seats right behind the cage for the attorneys group. And I was right there with the attorneys because they want to keep this out of the press. These suits, these are very, very powerful firms that are tied in with Ari Emanuel and Endeavor on another entertainment law deal. And they're the same group, identical group that successfully sued the NFL to put the fund together for CTE folks. So you're not going to see this hit the press because that's part of it. They don't want it to hit the press, and they probably don't want me doing podcasts like this, but I'm done with my deal with them. I've done my work for them and got my compensation. I'm done. So I don't mind doing shows like this, but I'm giving you guys, some real information, a real exclusive there of information that people just don't know and aren't going to know.
Yeah, I never knew that. I thought I was under the impression there was some trial that was going to happen, but until you informed me that there's no fucking trial. He could sit for years and years and years and years. I think the other thing that's interesting too, the Phil Baroni, let's just say for the sake of argument, Phil did kill somebody. There's no fucking way in hell he's going to call the fucking police. There's no way. There's no way he's going to call the police. He would have fucking ran. I firmly believe he called the police because he found a girl dead. So as crazy as Phil was, CTE or no CTE, he knows he grew up collecting, and stuff like that. He knows what's up. He's not gonna.
Yeah, exactly.
Call the police and confess. It's crazy.
Yeah, Phil Baroni's not going to find a dead woman. Is not going to kill a dead woman in a hotel room and not try to cover it up. And if he finds a dead woman in a hotel room, he freaked out. He was out of his mind when he went and found these folks, and this was all manufactured. And people, there's this thing online, and I think you guys can understand it. It's very pervasive with fans and of entertainers. I don't care if it's Alec Baldwin or whoever, or professional wrestlers or fighters, where the fans of these people, they all want to see people suffer. They all want to hate on people. And at the end of the day, they are innocuous to any facts. They don't want to hear the facts of what really happened. And it's crazy here because Phil, he's in a very, very corrupt foreign country, and we'll get to that, being extorted. And the attorneys are being extorted, the family's being extorted, and no one wants to hear that. His fellow Americans don't care that here you have this American, and it's so dangerous down there, and this happens to Americans all the time in Mexico. No one wants to hear that. All they want to hear is, oh yeah, oh yeah, we hate him. He say, yeah, we want to see him rot. And it's because they're upset with their own miserable lives. It's the troll epidemic. And I'm glad that my good friend Pat Milich is just going to be able to beat the hell out of his troll coming up. I want to talk about that too. I just did a promo for Pat's social media. That's been doing really well. This Mike Jackson punk that Pat cornered against CM Punk and tried to cancel Pat and cost him his job in broadcasting. It's the greater mentality.
That was the guy that tried to get Pat canceled. Was the guy that fought CM Punk?
Yeah, and Pat's fighting him, and Pat.
I never knew that.
Yeah, so Pat's a very good friend Going back to CTE, the Pat Military or CTE, I get a little conflated there. CTC in Austin, where Kamala and I were coaching wrestling, and was a great camp. One of Pat's camps that Tim Kennedy came out of too. Back in the day, I've known Pat for a number of years. He's one of my favorite guests on my old podcast, King's Court, and on the old school shooters podcast. And Pat also is great with helping me with Bobby Kennedy's campaign. He's been one of our right hand men that we brought in, one of the guys that brought in along with Colin Crandall and Jake Shannon. And love to get you involved in this too, Free Monster, with respect to Bobby's.
I was going to ask you about that. The Bobby.
Kennedy I want to make sure I get this out there. Pat is fighting October 14th, Mike Jackson, the same guy that he cornered against CM Punk. And this Mike Jackson is the one who tried to call Pat conspiracy theorist and white supremacist and all this crazy stuff and get him fired. And Pat is a great guy to all of us that know him. And Pat's going to be sitting cage side with Bobby Kennedy. He and Colin Crandall are going to be managing Bobby's visit to Madison Square Garden for the next John Jones fight. So we got a lot of cool stuff going on. But I want to go back to Phil, and I want you to tell people, because you and I used to talk all the time during those 2 years when I had Phil moved in your house. And Phil lived at my house in South Carolina for a while too. And I want you to tell people how bad Phil CTE was, so they understand what a perfect patsy he was.
I mean, he could have. Why don't you tell the story about your Phil Baroni? About him reintroducing himself to you constantly.
So me and Phil have met each other like I couldn't.
You even worked him one time in the ring,
right? I hang out with Matt all the time. I'd go to Matt's house all the time. He's like, "Hey, do you wrestle?" And I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about? We wrestled each other like 2 weeks ago." And he's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "We fucking wrestled each other 2 weeks ago, bro. Like, I'm Michael Shaw, and you see me every fucking week. What are you talking about? Like, all the time. We'd be at shows. We wrestled the same venue all the time. You'd ask us where the fucking bathroom is. We were there like 2 months before. I'm like, bro, it's right up there, like where it was last time we were here. What are you talking about? Like, this type of shit that like normal people would know, like where this is still, and like, you know what I mean? He like would reintroduce himself to me all the time. He'd act like we never met each other, and I met him. We're on shows every weekend together. I was at Matt's house just about every weekend, so I saw him all the time. He would act like he never knew me, and I'm like, dude, like we just drank together at a bar like 2 days ago. What the fuck are you talking?
It's like advanced. It's like just like advanced Alzheimer's and dementia. It's almost identical. And Phil would always, and this goes back 20 years ago. Phil used to always lose his wallet at least 4 or 5 times a day. And lose his keys, and it's not really funny, man, because this is
not. But it reminded me of a story where we got to a grappling match in a hotel because
over a jacket.
No, it wasn't over a jacket. Is I got him a gig for at a bar, and he ended up, and he didn't remember this. He gave his, I'm going to say this is not a big deal. He gave his money to a hooker that night and forgot about it. Yeah. The next day, his money was gone. I'm like, bro, you gave your money to that hooker. And he's like, no, I didn't, Freeman. I'm like, yeah, you did. So you
forget about it. And, and here's the thing. When you're down, he's down in Mexico. He can't put a sentence together in Spanish. And he's the perfect patsy. I mean, he was sleeping on the floor at a marina, and he was the perfect patsy for the cartels. And that's what this story is about. And it's a very, very sad story. And that's what I want people to know, and I want people to understand, because most of these fans don't. And most of these punks, these bitches that comment, they've never been punched in the head. And
they the wrong person in Mexico, and they fucking set him up. That's what I understand.
Yeah. Well, he was working for the cartels, and he actually sent me a couple of messages about how he was worried that he was gonna get set up because he didn't trust these fuckers. Yeah. And we had him on Old School Shooters only a few weeks before this happened. So I understand it took forever to try to get him on the show. just technically get him on the show. And so he was the perfect patsy, just like Lee Harvey Oswald. And this is where I want to segue to. Just like Sirhan. And a lot of people don't understand that with Sirhan. They need to listen directly to Bobby, because this all ties together, because I'm a executive consultant for Bobby Kennedy Jr. and the Super PAC. I'm working with the director and co-director of the Super PAC and the director of the campaign on getting Bobby to the UFC, the Jones fight, getting Bobby out to some top camps to train. He's going to be training with King Mo, with former UFC heavyweight champion Josh Barnett. He's going to be training with Olympic champion and national collegiate champion Wade Chalice at these camps that I've been involved with Jake Shannon, the Silence of Violence scientific wrestling camps. We're going to have him on a number of media with combat sports and outdoor shows. And we'd love to vet maybe getting him on the 209 kliqcast, because Bobby is a great guy. And Bobby's done a lot of work at our border, and Biden has literally surrendered. President Biden, and it's not really President Biden, you can't really blame it on him. He's neither here nor there these days. But his administration has surrendered the border to the cartels. And they run everything, just like they run everything in Mexico, from the police to the jails to the halfway houses.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. And I haven't supported a Democrat candidate in a long time, but I would definitely be very open to the idea of supporting Bobby Kennedy. And one thing I want to say about that too is this guy, he's kind of like Trump in the way that he's got his life set. He really doesn't need to be the president.
Doesn't need it. Yeah.
He doesn't need it. And so
he's a fucking Kennedy. He doesn't need to be fucking president.
And I think also he's got some fucking balls, because he knows what happened to his dad, and he still.
They just tried to assassinate him, Matt. They literally tried to assassinate him. And Biden won't give him Secret Service protection. He's the only presidential candidate that doesn't get Secret Service protection. So it's horrendous. And what Bobby is running on, he says he doesn't have the Trump derangement syndrome that a lot of these Democrats have. He says, I can beat Trump because Trump supporters, I don't hate Trump supporters, but Trump was sort of a wolf in sheep's clothing. And he said, I would have fired Fauci and I wouldn't have shut down the economy. And he was out there talking about that before Kristi Noem, governor of South Dakota, before our governor down here, Ron DeSantis. Bobby was saying, what the hell are you doing? Don't shut down the economy over this. And he was vaccine injured. He was very, very critical of the vaccines before all of this stuff. And so Bobby is, let's face it. You want to talk about gangsters, Joe Kennedy and the Kennedy family. They were the gangsters that came up with Sam Giancana and all the rum running and prohibition. And you look at the Kennedys, they were both murdered, and CIA and the mob. And Bobby has talked to the gangster who set up Lee Harvey Oswald and the murder of his uncle. He's actually talked to him, and we're getting this guy on Crime and Entertainment podcast with Bobby to talk about it. He's an old-time gangster that was involved in that with the CIA. Bobby has said, look, the CIA murdered my father and my uncle. I'd listen to Bobby about what happened to his dad, because he gets deep into it. He believes Sirhan was a patsy. And I believe Lee Harvey Oswald was a patsy, and I believe the New York badass Phil Baroni was a patsy and is a patsy currently. When are we going to stop this madness, Matt Freeman?
I pretty much agree with you on that. He was very, very, very. You're talking Phil Baroni in Mexico with CTE. He's a very easy person to set up in that situation. Unfortunately,
wandering around like confused about where he is. Sleeping on the floor at this marina. Was doing stuff for the cartels, messaging me multiple times that he was in fear of his life for the cartels. He didn't trust these motherfuckers, is what he was saying. All of that's been sent to the attorneys, and the ground investigation from our investigators to former district attorney shows he didn't have an interpreter. The police report that the fans in the U.S. saw was manufactured. This is an American citizen. This can happen to any of you who travel down to Mexico or anywhere in Latin America.
Let me ask you this question too. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, there were witnesses that saw multiple people coming in and out of that hotel room.
Yes, coming in and out of the room. We have witnesses. If there ever was going to be a trial, which is doubtful, they say that they're going to have these hearings, and this is what they do. And I'll give you a little inside baseball. They say we're going to have these hearings, right, about the police misconduct, and we may release Phil. And that's when they tie that into the extortion with where he's kept and the safety of where he's kept. And then they'll set a date for the hearing and then they'll cancel it. That's happened at least 4 times now. So it's very, very shady, and you don't know who to trust. I don't trust any of them.
It's been over a year, right? At least.
The beginning of New Year's is when I think.
Yeah, it was New Year's, so it's coming up on a year. It's coming up on a year, but there's people that are down there 8, 10, 12 years with these kind of charges, and it just becomes a extortion rap until the family runs out of money. And I've said this before, then they put them in general population to die when there's no more money to get.
I mean, yeah, that's probably, unfortunately, unless a miracle happens, that's what Phil, our fellow American, that's what he's looking at right now. He's looking at eventually his family runs out of money and it's lights out.
Yeah, there's no outrage by the fans. I mean, it's sad. We have this
even Dana White. He's been silent on the whole thing.
Yeah, we have this weird culture today, as where we turn our backs on people and we love to see our fellow men suffer, and we're in these weird groups where we hate each other. It's a horrible time in America, and that's why I think Bobby Kennedy Jr. Bobby's the guy that can bring us together in 2024.
I agree with that too. And another thing that maybe with Phil is that because of the CTE, he was a little bit misunderstood. I, for a while, was pissed at him and didn't want to talk to him ever again. But you kind of helped me out with that when you were talking about, the brain damage that he suffered, and that, he was a different dude before these things happened. And I realized some of the things that I was mad about, the outburst and going off on people and causing problems had a lot to do with the CTE.
Has everything to do with it. And one of the things that, for people to understand is the best way to equate it is if you have a loved one, and if you live long enough, it's either cancer's going to get you, or it's going to be Alzheimer's and dementia. And if you have dealt with that with loved ones, as a lot of us have, you understand that. And it's very similar to that. I mean, I had a girlfriend. Yeah, I had a girlfriend when I was younger, when I was a teenager, whose brother got in a bad car accident, and he used to have these crazy mood swings. And I learned in talking to her and her family that this is not his fault. And Phil just hit the perfect patsy. I mean, really the perfect patsy in this situation.
I agree with that. But before I let you go, there's one thing I have to bring up, because it's an amazing story. It made me happy that I could say that a friend of mine was responsible for making the Nature Boy jealous. Matt Granahan, would you care to tell the Wendy Ric Flair Granahan story?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll start out with a woo as well. Yeah, that was a wild one. So I had known, I haven't told this story in a while because it's a couple of years old. I had known Rick from when he had his boat on Lake Murray in South Carolina, and I had my house there. And way back in those days, he was married to Tiffany, this chick Tiffany, and I was bouncing just on the weekends because I had a good job. I was traveling during the week, and I was living with this chick that was kind of driving me nuts. So I took a bouncing job on the lake on the weekends, and Rick's boat was there, and I got to know him a little bit. And he later went out on a boat with me and this chick Ginger, and he was all over. And she loved it because she was a she was a Ric Flair fan. So she's like, oh, she's, rubbing her ass against his junk and everything. And he saw how he was. And then in 2016, I'm partying with Rick on Lake Lanier on his boat, and he's with this girl that I had brought that was a really hot lake. She was Gloria. She wasn't my Venezuelan girl Glory, but she was Gloria. She was Mexican and Lebanese, and he's all over. And he's like, "Oh, you're so exotic." And she's freaking out. She's like, "Get this guy off me," because she wasn't a wrestling fan. And so
I can only
that was the
imagine.
last.
I can only imagine what she thought, not knowing who he was and how Ric Flair is.
Yeah. Yeah, she's like, what the hell is it? So anyway, so you fast forward to 2020 or 2021 when I'm hosting the podcast for our law firm, for Berman Law Group, and they're like, we want to have Ric Flair on. So I go, oh, cool. I know Rick, hadn't talked to him in a while. I sent my condolences when his son passed, and we were out in Lake Lanier after that. And I said, I'll reach out to him. And I used to send him a lot of pictures of her at that 2016, 2017 time. And he's like, Matt, you got any pictures of that girl, that exotic Spanish girl? And he wanted like videos of her dildo and herself and pictures. So I said, no, but I go, I'm with this Venezuelan chick now, and her sisters were all wild. So I'm not gonna send you pictures of the one I'm banging, but I'll send you his sister, And then I said, I also have this Dominican one that I met when I was flying out to the airport. I was flying out to do that addendum with Eric Paulson, and and I met this Dominican chick that was really wild there, and she had a lot of great pictures. And I had this Cambodian. I had a few on my phone, so I start just sending him. He's like, Matt, he goes, it's like Christmas morning. This is awesome, because I had like 3 girls dildoing themselves, and he go, and then like a couple days later he calls me, and I was hanging out with that Cambodian chick, and he calls me and he goes, Matt, this is Rick. You got to call Wendy. You got to tell her those pictures were for your other friend. They weren't for me. And I go, okay, whatever, So the day went on and I forgot about it. And then that night, he starts texting me, Matt, kill yourself, you son of a bitch.
I've seen these too, by the way.
Yeah. All those texts are on Hannibal. Hannibal verified his number and took all of them for the first. We had a few videos. And he goes, Matt, and by the way, all these women you send me, they don't compare to my Wendy. And so obviously, Wendy's with him. So I kind of ignored it. And then I didn't even think about it for a while. So I did the first video with Hannibal just as a goof, because I knew it would get views. So I didn't think about it for a while. Then the story comes out that he and Wendy have separated. So I took credit over the separation, and I did another video. And then I reached out to Wendy, and they live in Rosemary, which is a beach. I'm in Florida, but that's kind of on the other coast. Oh, damn, I'm overheating. I got to get this done quick before I overheat on my phone. And he goes, so he goes, I sent her a picture in the pool, and I'm in the pool, and she's like, I'm jealous of your tan. And I said, you want to go for some cocktails? And she goes, come on out. We'll have some mimosas. And she tells the place. So I didn't think anything of it. And then I get a message at like 4 a.m. from Rick, and it's all my messages. And he says he's gonna send people after me and all this shit. It's fucking hilarious. So I did a whole nother. Yeah, I did a whole nother Hannibal video, and then we tried to get him involved. Like, I took a young wrestler that was Reed's teammate, in AAU, because Reed was on the national team for AAU, and I took the kid and I beat him up, I choked him out, and put him in the figure 4.
Died.
Oh, we lost Granahan. Wasn't that a great story? Was that the best story ever? Matt Granahan was the guy that made Ric Flair jealous, that drove him to get back with Wendy. And that's a shoot.
I think that's it.
And we lost him. I think we lost him, but I don't think we need anything else. I think we ended.
Well, at least he finished the move.
No, he did. He finished it.
We got lucky. I was worried.
But yeah, let's take a break, and we will be right back. I gotta take a piss.
Don't stare at me.
Oh wow, man. What a great fucking interview. And I think he ended it with one of the best, to me, one of the greatest stories that I've ever heard in my life was the Wendy Ric Flair. Could you imagine? Can't you just imagine Ric Flair hitting on some girl and she doesn't really know who he is?
I don't think he's ever gone through that in his life. You know what I mean?
He's so exotic. Wow. And he's like, giving her he's doing the Ric Flair, like, you're so exotic. And she's like, the one thing that Matt didn't tell is she got pissed. She was like, tell this fucking old man to get his hands off me. And then Matt Granahan's like, don't you know that's the nature boy you're talking about? It's his girlfriend. He's like, don't you know that's the nature boy? 17 times the nature boy walked down that aisle.
But at that time, he's got to be what? He's like 70 something now, so he's got to be in his late 60s.
Yeah, no, I think it's funny how he told Matt Granahan that he ordered Matt to stay out of the city that Wendy lives in, that he can never go back into that city again, and that if he did go, there's going to be real repercussions.
I mean, McMahon's have fucking pull. He probably has power to.
I think Granahan's got a little pull himself.
I know. I know.
As you can see, Granahan's still walking.
Right.
But like he's gonna like he lives in pro wrestling world. Like he's gonna send Arn Anderson to break your leg if you don't stop talking to Wendy.
Sid's coming.
Ole's coming after you. Ole and Arn are gonna stretch you out.
Dean Malenko's coming back, dude.
Man, that was that out of all the versions of the Horseman, clearly the Wyndham version was the best, right? With Barry, Tully, or do you agree or disagree, Mike? The Horseman, okay, and then the original is pretty good with Arn.
I think Wyndham was a better wrestler though, so Wyndham was.
That was the best one. However, I think out of all the other versions, out of all the Boo Boo versions, the best Boo Boo version was Rick, Dean, McMongo because of the way he talked on the mic. You disagree?
Benoit
and Pillman, Arn,
and that's when Mongo was with him.
Oh,
Pillman. No, Pillman was
replaced.
Barely in there though.
What?
Right?
For like a year.
Was it a whole year?
It was like a year.
I thought Mongo did great on the mic.
Mongo was good, but he wasn't Brian Pillman.
He was a horrible wrestler. I mean,
who cares?
Fucking horrible.
So are you. But...
Well, I'm really horrible because I have a tendency to slap guys in their fucking ear.
Yeah. You're a fucking ass.
Did you hear that?
Funny.
These guys like to talk. Both of these guys, my 209 clique that I run, both guys have wrestled me and they both lost their hearing. CJ Dirt and Michael Shawn.
Well, who won?
I don't know. Does it even matter? Does anybody even remember?
Who's the champion?
Well, would you rather win or would you rather lose the hearing in your ear? Would you rather win a wrestling match?
I walked away.
Yeah, but you
lost to me and lost a girlfriend the fucking night.
What?
Yep.
What? You lost your hearing though.
I can hear now. Just fucking fine.
You know, I could do it again. With CJ, I gave him a little. I put a little English on it intentionally. I didn't mean to put that much English on it. I didn't mean to like knock him out.
And you can clearly see whose fucking problem is in the 209 click.
I didn't mean to knock him out, but that motherfucker comes at you stiff though.
I'm just glad Midas is in the 209 click now. That's all I'm saying.
Little Midas. Midas started. We're waiting on Dakota to click the link. Let's see, but he hasn't clicked it yet. Huh? Not gone.
It'll show up on here, Matt. I know you don't know technology and stuff, but his fucking name will.
Where's he at? There. Where's he at? Anyways, Midas started his first pro wrestling lesson ever was right in my backyard in my ring. And it's funny because then Midas goes on and he's like, he's all over the place and he's wrestling up north. And when he's up north with those people, he wants to act like he doesn't know anything about the Big MF. And he never sends no shots out, never says thank you. Like everybody else who took advantage of the Big MF and used him. He's just like those people. And unfortunately for Midas, I've got a very good plan for Midas Creed. He's literally a pawn.
Oh.
I'm playing a game of chess. You guys are all playing checkers. Midas is really playing checkers. I am going to paint a beautiful piece of art, and it's going to be so violent.
Yeah.
it's gonna end so violently for Midas, and it's gonna be a beautiful picture when I'm done, of blood, of guts, of gore. Midas Creed has no idea. He has no idea what I got in store for him. But soon, stay tuned. Right now, I'm training at Minutes to Muscle with Ron Reed. I'm getting bigger. Look at the pump.
Are you like learning
Look at
to
the
wrestle
pump.
while you're away? Or
I don't need to learn how to wrestle. I knock motherfuckers out. I send motherfuckers to the hospital, and they lose their hearing when they get into the ring with me. Just ask that other jabron that doesn't know what to fucking say on a podcast, who could run his mouth and talk and talk and talk. Ladies and gentlemen,
see how it says his fucking name right there? That means he's fucking
Dakota.
coming in, dumbass.
Hey, don't embarrass me in front of Dakota.
All right, whatever.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by one of my favorite bare knuckle fighters. We met many years ago in a big giant fiasco where we all got screwed. But Dakota, thanks for joining us, man. What's been going on?
No problem. Just sitting here waiting for my boys' football game and chilling, talking with you.
You know, just jumping right into it. So one of the things, I didn't know who you were until that night, the bare knuckle scandal. But when I watched you just wreck Johnny Hendricks, like you literally, that was the end of Hendricks. You never heard of Johnny Hendricks again. I mean, would you care to talk about that whole bare knuckle experience and what happened that night?
Yeah, that was a crazy turn of events, that's for sure. I was supposed to fight another person on that card, and then Johnny Hendricks' opponent pulled out, so they were looking for someone to fight him. I said, "Fuck, I'll fight him." I didn't really care, and then end up, getting my pay increased and stuff like that.
Well,
Of nothing,
it
zero,
won't
of
triple your
zero.
pay if you take this fight.
Yeah,
Nothing.
yeah. Basically, obviously at the time I thought it was gonna be awesome. I was supposed to make, I think my purse was like 40K or like 30 or something like that. If I knocked him out, I would get an extra, so the total would have been like 50K.
Nice.
So that would have been real nice.
Yeah.
And then end up, like he was very, very nice. He was super happy like about me taking the fight, and yeah. So I was like, yeah, no problem, man. I'm not coming to lose. Like I'm not just showing up to lose. So I don't know if that's what he thought I was gonna do, but that's just not my style. So I ended up knocking him out, and then not getting paid. So yeah.
I mean, so like maybe just go back to that, because that was crazy. Like for myself, I was managing the crazy Phil Baroni at the time, and I told the story earlier, which I think it has a lot to do with what happened to Phil Baroni later in his life. But there's Bear, who you work for now, BKFC. So there's BKFC that was talking to us, and I can't remember what the fuck that company was that ended up screwing everyone over. I forgot their name.
It was World Bare Knuckle Fighting Federation.
Okay, so those guys. So BKFC David Feldman was going to give Phil a 3-fight deal, 2 easy fights where I could pick the opponent. He would give me a handful of guys, and I could pick which one that I wanted, whoever sucked the most. And then the third fight was supposed to be Bobby Gunn. It was like 7,000 a fight, and then with like a 3, 4, 5,000 knockout bonus. Whoever the guy was going to be someone he should fucking knock out. So, and then the other company comes along and offers Chris Lehman 50 to show, and then 50 grand to show, and 50 to win. And I was begging him not to fucking fight Chris Lehman, because I knew Phil's, he had a certain amount of CTE and like a lot. And in a perfect world, he wouldn't be fighting anymore, but there was not much he could do really other than fighting. So we were trying to come up with a plan, get some money, start a pro wrestling school, and then like an MMA sort of school. I didn't before I got into business with Phil, I didn't realize how crazy he was. Like I found that out later when he was living with me. But I think things could have worked out. Anyways, he took the Lehman fight instead of the BKFC fight. Gets fucked up, and really it was never the same after that. And then nobody gets paid. Like when did you realize that you were not going to get paid for that?
It was probably 2 months after like I was hounding him every day, every week for probably about 2 months after that. I figured out that it wasn't going to happen.
You end up knocking out at the time, Johnny Hendricks was not really that far removed from, from his prime. He was well known, and close to that moment, he was known as, in MMA as champion, one of the best guys around. I mean, you got to be riding on cloud 9. You fucking destroyed him. He literally went down into the cradle position in that fight. How does you have this crazy high and you come down to this fucking low? I mean, were you fucked financially and all that, all those things?
Yeah, because obviously you could have fought somewhere else and made some money. That was a very difficult time for me, actually, because I just started my deck business at that time, and like maybe a couple months after I took that, or before I took that fight. So I took a big risk in doing that because I made good money I was a personal trainer and stuff. So, but starting that deck business, it was a big risk. And then I was kind of banking on having some of that money for over the winter, because obviously winter time and building decks is a tough time, right? So once we like took that fight, me and my wife actually went down to Arizona. We had a friend's wedding that I was in, and so we spent, probably a little extra money than we should have or would have if I wouldn't have won that fight, basically. So it put me in a bad situation for a while.
Now, for a while, but you pretty much, I think you've came out of it. You're still fighting for BKFC, correct?
Yeah. Yep. No, obviously the deck business has done well, actually fighting for a legit organization that is established, and they take care of the fighters. So yeah, that's a big difference.
Do you have anything lined up coming up with BKFC?
I'm thinking before December is what I'm hoping for.
And is there anybody that you have your eyes on that you like to fight, or just whoever they put in front of you?
Honestly, I don't really give a shit who I fight. It's just like a blank face, or most of the time I don't even know their name. I just know how much I'm getting paid and how tall they are. That's all I care.
The fight that I would like to see personally, if I'm making matches, would be you against the Urban Juggernaut. That would be the fight that he looks like. You're a bad motherfucker. He's a bad motherfucker. That would be a fight that it would just be fucking blood, guts, and glory, and heads getting knocked left and right.
Yeah, I would like to fight him. That's for sure.
If I was your manager, that would be the fucking fight right there. What do you think about him?
Yeah.
What do you think about him as a fighter?
As a fighter, no, he's gritty. Like, I mean, he showed some heart on that Richmond fight, and
right. I thought I thought it was lights out for him.
Yeah, I mean, he was getting fucked up. He was done, and then kept on fighting. So I give him respect on that for sure. As a fighter, he's very skilled, very explosive, very powerful. But yeah, as his tactics on like I don't really know him as a person, but just what he puts on social media, like I it's not someone I would probably hang out with.
Right. No, you don't like, so you're a pretty quiet dude, you don't really talk a lot of shit, but you go out there and fuck dudes up. Fun to watch, but are you only fighting bare knuckle these days? Do you do MMA still too, or
no, I've had a couple offers for MMA, but it's like I said, I don't really care about the fighter. Like, it's more about the money. So, and I just don't there's not as much incentive right now to fight MMA.
so what's how much different when you're doing bare knuckle? How much different is it than let's say boxing? Do you train different at all? Do you spar bare knuckle, or like how do you prepare for that? Because getting hit with the fucking knuckle is crazy.
Yeah, it's not fun. I don't like getting punched.
Right, it's fucking gnarly.
No, it's you train. I guess I train boxing mostly with your gloves, and then you got to do sessions where you don't have the gloves as well. So it's a good mixture. I like training for the bare knuckle, like when I'm busy with my business, because it's not as hard on the body training for the fight as MMA, but I would say the fight is probably a little bit harder on you than MMA.
Yeah, I've noticed guys get knocked in bare knuckle, even more so than even boxing. You have less rounds and whatnot, but guys get knocked down a lot, like a lot more. That I guess that punch. Can you describe the difference between a punch without a MMA glove or a boxing glove versus a punch with a bare fist? What does that feel like? The difference?
Yeah, it's. I would say they both fucking hurt. So
Yeah, right.
they both don't feel great, but there's just a lot less you don't have as much room to block. So like when you throw your hands up, those bare knuckle, they slip in and connect a lot easier than like when you have a glove on MMA or boxing. So you just have a lot more blocking capability like with the glove, whether it's MMA or boxing, than you do the bare knuckle. So I would say that's probably the biggest difference.
I mean, I can't wait to see you fight again. Only because, like, when you fight, everyone knows it's gonna be a fucking fight. I've never seen you in a boring fight. And after you knocked out Hendricks, that night I was like, oh, I can't describe what it was like being there live. And you see Hendricks. I said it earlier. He goes down and he's like in the fetal position, and Johnny left fighting after that. You never heard. He became a sheriff or whatever, and then you fought Chris Lieben. And you beat I think Lieben retired too after he fought you, or did he not?
No, he fought one or two times after I fought him, I think.
What was that fight like when you fought Chris Lieben?
That was intimidating as fuck.
Right?
So, he's a big dude, and like I didn't have to cut weight at all. So, and I know he cut quite a bit I think he had to weigh like 192 or something like that. And shit, I didn't have to cut at all. So I walked in like normal. I was like 190. So it was he's a big dude, scary dude. I've seen him knock so many people out. And my wife was like, she was not very comfortable with that fight whatsoever.
I bet. Holy fuck. You had to tell
She's like,
you told your wife
Chris Lieben.
What happened when you told her Chris Lieben?
She's like, she knows once I have my mindset, like there's not really changing it. So she went from like, you're gonna fucking, he's knocked out a lot of people. I'm like,
That doesn't make you feel very good when your wife is telling you that, right?
I know, babe, but fuck it, let's give it a try. She's like, you're crazy. Okay, then then she goes into the support mode, but she's never really one to say, oh, you're gonna knock this guy out. Like she's just always there to help me whatever I need, like as far as helping me get down to weight, or she's always been a great cheerleader. So it's nice to have someone like that in the corner, never telling you like you can't do something.
I mean, that's nice to hear, because I think a lot of fighters have had the opposite throughout their career. Like I've heard a lot of, like I had a buddy of mine, Steve Heath, way back in the day. He fought Chuck Liddell for IFC. It was right after Chuck had just fought Jeremy Horn and lost. So it was kind of like one of those deals where whoever wins this fight is going to go into the UFC. Well, that night he got into a big fight with his girlfriend. They literally fought for 24 fucking hours almost. No sleep. He's got to go into the ring and fight Chuck Liddell. He ends up getting knocked out.
Yeah.
Like you see stories, or I know of fighters who have like the wrong girlfriend or the wrong wife, and maybe you don't know about it because the stories don't get out. But I wonder how many guys lost their fight because they're emotionally and mentally their girl's fucking with them the night before.
Oh man, I bet there's so many. Yeah, that's the aspect that people don't realize. We're real people. We have relationships, and things always don't go smooth. But yeah, if you have someone toxic in your life on the relationship side, and if I have had several buddies who their wives hated that they fought, and like I've been lucky. My wife's been there since I started fighting all the way. Like she still supports me now. So she's told me to like quit my job, and I need to go train down somewhere in California or Vegas or wherever. She's told me to do that so many times, but I'm kind of the type of guy I like structure. I like to provide for my family, and I just can't go out on a whim, and I got to make sure my family's taken care of. So she's she's probably told me to go out and train, and I've held myself back on that, I guess.
Sounds like my wife.
Do you feel like maybe there's a couple fights that you may have won if you would have done that you lost, or do you think it matters? Do you think you're
Oh, for sure.
yeah.
Just having, you know, like I guess someone in the training room who's like a bunch of guys pushing you. Like I have great training partners, but if you're one of the top guys, you know, you're not getting beat up, you're not getting pushed like
Yeah,
you
you
could
probably
if
are the
there
top
was.
guy, I would imagine, like with the guys that you're training with.
I mean, there's always someone better in some aspect, but you know, I've had a great training room, but guys your same weight, having 15 guys your same weight is completely different as having, oh, you got a 205er like Ryan Jensen. He's always been able to beat my ass, you know. Derek Minner, he's a little smaller. You know, I have great dudes, but they're just not the same weight. So I would assume that would have made it a big difference.
This is what we're gonna do. I want to thank you a million times for coming on. It was a pleasure talking to you. I know it's football Sunday. You took the time out on a fucking Sunday. We're gonna create a headline. It's gonna be Dakota Cochrane does not like the antics, the social media antics of the urban juggernaut. And if we make this fight happen, you got to shout us out after the fight.
Send you a click.
I can do that for sure.
No, thanks a million though. You know, we both shared that horrible bare knuckle experience where, I mean, I wasn't fighting, but I put a lot of money into that and ended up having a concussed Phil Baroni, completely broke, staying at my house with nowhere to go after that fight. So
yeah, man, I've actually talked to Phil like after that, maybe a couple of years after that. I talked to him. I actually invited him out to come to train out at my place, and I try to help him too, because he said he was pretty down on his luck, and so I feel bad on that, and so I invited him and offered him shit. I was like, I'll even give you a job on my deck business, and then you could train and shit like that. So
you know, you have a great heart, but I don't think you did your business much good. Like I think you might have lost a lot of business with that one.
Yeah, well,
Phil's a great dude until Phil becomes Phil, and it's not such a great dude.
But like we had a guy on earlier, actually, Granahan, who actually is involved in the case and everything. There's a lot more than meets the eye than what's being reported. I think that Phil could have been set up, and maybe that will come out, maybe it won't. But we talked about that earlier. But anyways, man, dude, thanks for coming on the show, and I look forward to maybe talking to you again after you get a fight lined up or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be great, man.
All right, man. Thank you again. Enjoy your Sunday, man. And like I said, I'm a big fan. Ever since you knocked out Johnny Hendricks, you made me a believer.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Later.
Have a good one.
That was BKFC. I almost said UFC. BKFC fighter Dakota Cochrane. That was a pretty nice little interview there. Huh?
Should have asked him about Paige.
Paige. Who? What?
Paige, because that's the only bare knuckle fighter that I know is Paige.
Oh, it's Paige. I think Paige should stick to fans only.
Only fans.
Whenever I look at her, I get confused.
Jesus.
I get confused and I reverse things when I think about Paige. You knew Paige. You knew Paige back in when you were younger, right? In Reno.
Yeah, I rolled with her. She was like 16, 17.
Oh, you dirty dog.
I was like in my 20s.
You dirty. Oh, you were in your 20s. You were an adult. And you're on the ground with Paige Van Zandt getting a boner. Did you get a boner?
I did not.
You liar. You liar. I know you.
She's a little girl.
Michael Sean.
But
the headlines. Michael Sean admits to getting a boner when he rolled with an underage Paige Van Zandt.
Right. But legit, the company that she worked for, Reno fucking Combat Academy, would fucking whore her out basically in little fucking t-shirts and shit at 16, 17 years old, and made her like their poster child, but she's a little girl.
Man, well, all I gotta say is that's, every guy gets like a pass, with their girl, and my girl's got a few that she gets a pass on, which will never fucking happen. Like the guy who played
Aquaman.
Thor, the guy who played Aquaman, the guy who played Thor. What are the chances that will ever happen? Mine is Paige Van Zandt.
Mine's Trish Stratus.
Trish Stratus.
Still Trish Stratus.
What, do you have a bigger chance at Bag and Stratus, or do I get a better chance at Bag and Page? Who's got the better chance
I
there?
think neither one of us have a shot at one.
You never know, man. You never know. You can catch it. You catch someone when they're down. Like, let's say Paige is a bare knuckle fight and she gets beat, she gets knocked out, and maybe like her man gets mad and they get into a big fight and he leaves her and she's really depressed. She's really
It's a
down.
lot of qualifying
Yeah.
conditions.
A lot
like-
of shit to my have.
And I message her like, "That was a really good fight out there. You really should have won. I think you got screwed." And you never know. Then all
So
of
it's not like a multi-millionaire out there trying to fuck her right now.
you never
What if
know.
it gets
What
one leg
about,
cut
you know,
off?
maybe not now, but what about like 20 years from now when she's put a lot of weight on
So
and
like
she's no
Sonny.
longer famous?
So like when Sonny
Like
was on my
Sonny.
list.
Yeah, Sonny, you'd fuck Sonny, right? Let's
still
be
would.
honest. It's because
I'll be
it's Sonny.
honest, I would.
You know, I don't. Just to tell the truth here, I love Matt Robles, but you know, but me and Missy Hyatt, fuck it, I'm gonna do it. That's Missy Hyatt. That's the first fucking wrestler that I ever jerked off to.
Sonny's mine.
And then Elizabeth was second. Sonny was third.
Francine and Sonny were like my whole fucking childhood, and then Trish Stratus showed up, and it changed my whole life.
I filled up several socks thinking about Missy Hyatt.
Stacy Keebler was pretty good too.
Stacey Keebler was pretty hot. She's still pretty hot. She's
Yeah.
the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Roy
Can't go
Wilson
wrong.
too.
Yeah.
That whole era. They don't age. I don't know what was in the water in the fucking.
I remember the
late
Divas
90s.
magazine, and I remember the only page you would never worry about being stuck in that book was the China
Luna?
page.
Oh, I was gonna say Luna.
I would
would've
bang
fucked
China.
China.
No, sure, but compared to everyone else in
Oh.
the book,
Yeah,
she's
Yeah.
definitely
she was like lower tier.
not placing.
Yeah,
I mean,
her and Ivory were like.
yeah, there was a moment when China got some plastic surgery done and she became a lot more feminine.
Right.
We're like
Playboy era.
the Playboy era. Oh man. Well, I think that's a wrap. You know, that was a pretty good show today. Like, you know, I gotta say, I forgot about how much I hated you.
Yeah, still fucking hate you.
I had fun. In November, I'll be back to reclaim my status as the boss of the 209 Kliq.
You ain't shit in the 209 Kliq.
I'll handle Midas Creed,
Oh, you
little
can't do
Midas,
anything.
the
You're
guy
doing
that
anything.
like indie pro wrestling royalty. Let's
They're
all
force
just get in
busting
line.
you.
Let's all get in line and lay down for Midas Creed and put him over.
How about you just get back in line and fucking stop your little ego trip
Mm,
and fucking
No, I'm gonna
go back to
wait.
where the fuck you belong.
I'm gonna wait till November. I'm gonna come back. The place will be packed. All the little MFers are gonna be out there. I'll have a line of t-shirts out, and I will my manager G Spot will be there, and you know, no, like listen, I told you to hire G. You couldn't even stand him.
It's true.
You couldn't stand him. I told you to hire G. Like I make people fear the 209 Kliq.
Of what?
Because look at this. Look at that. Look at that vein.
Year-old man.
Look at that. I'll still strangle you.
Jesus.
Whether I'm 60 or whether I'm 70 or whether I'm 80, I'll fucking strangle you. I'll end your life. The last thing you'll ever hear will be me whispering little sweet nothings in your ear before you fucking die. Trust me, you don't want that.
I've rolled with you, Matt. I'm not that
Yeah,
scared.
I roll with you and I mostly
that
tap
scared.
you at will.
I'm not that scared.
At will. How many times do you tap me?
Twice.
You motherfucker.
Bullshit.
You
Bullshit
motherfucker.
twice.
You've never tapped me.
Because your
You've
shoulder,
never
I got you in your
tapped me.
shoulder. You're like, okay, let go. Let go.
No, that's not a tap. You didn't tap me.
Oh my fucking god. Bullshit.
You're out of your fucking
You're
mind.
out of your fucking mind.
Man, you just signed up for some serious pain.
Yeah.
You just signed up for some pain.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna use all my pain.
You've been rolling.
Mangle.
You've been rolling since the 1990, and I've been rolling
Ah.
barely ever in my life. That's all I'm saying.
You never tap me.
Bullshit.
You never tap me. You're out of your fucking mind.
You're like one of Ken
It's
Shamrock's
funny
training
to
spot
even think that
partners.
you could.
You're one of fucking Ken Shamrock's
I
original
will
training
fucking
partners,
tie you up
and
into a
still-
pretzel and send you back to your old man.
Oh my god.
Well, I feel sorry for having a son like you. And by the way, like you need to be nicer to your wife. Seriously,
Yeah,
you're a dick to her.
I know.
And-
You need to be
and-
nicer to your
and
girlfriend.
she's expressed that to me.
You need to be nicer to your
You
fucking
know, and she's
girlfriend.
told me some things about you. I'm not gonna say to everyone else,
Yeah.
but it's just you should be nicer.
When
to
was
her.
the last time you talked to my wife?
The other
over
night,
a month
the other
ago?
night at a bar
Yeah.
during that when you guys were doing that show, me and her had a little drink.
At Avery, when this all went down? Last time I
No,
seen you?
no, no.
Yeah.
It was in Manteca while you were wrestling.
Bullshit. My wife
Anyways,
likes you. She won't even fucking talk
no,
to
she
you.
doesn't even like. She doesn't like you.
She loves me.
She hates you.
She
She
might
told
hate
me.
but she loves me.
Well, November 11th, I will reclaim my authority. I will set the record straight. I will bitch slap all those who need to be bitch slapped. Speaking of bitch slapping somebody, I think, I'm calling shots. I'm thinking about I might wrestle Firebelly that day. I heard he put my name in his little bitch mouth, and he said that I'm the reason why. I know in the wrestling business we got to get noticed. But he said that I ran away because I wrestled him.
Can I shoot for a minute?
And do whatever you want.
All right. That fat fuck. 5 people don't know who the fuck he is in a wrestling show, and he thinks he's relevant. I'm being 100% honest. This is the gospel truth. He's a shitty wrestler. He fucking doesn't listen. He thinks he knows more than his fucking trainers. And
he knows more than one of them.
Who? You? Yeah,
you. I don't claim him.
I don't either. He
knows more than you.
I don't claim him either. I only have 2 fucking kids.
One of the problems is he trained with you and you led him the wrong way.
No.
He's a mark. What is your nickname?
Oh my.
What is your nickname? What do people call? People call Michael Sean. They call him a self mark.
Yeah.
You're known for being a mark for yourself.
Yeah.
Known.
Somebody's got to be
known. You walk around with Bret Hart t-shirts and you walk around with Ultimate Warrior. You're trying to recreate this childhood that never happened.
No, my childhood happened. I lived it.
You're trying to recreate your childhood. You're trying to be like you call yourself Michael Sean because you want to suck Shawn Michaels' dick.
Or it's my real fucking name.
It's not your real name.
Okay.
It's not your real name.
Mm-hmm.
Your real name is really dumb.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it though, because it's like saying Mixoplex. It really fuck shit up if you say it.
Mixoplex?
Yeah. If you say that, if you say Michael Sean's real name, a bunch of bad shit will happen.
Right.
Anyways, I think we're done. November 11th, the boss will be back. Check out Total Wrestling Federation, Lucha Patron.
I show up to all my bookings. I don't leave my friends high and dry. That's all I'm fucking saying.
Listen, I'm the reason why you even got the title. I ran over Tony Vargas, drug your carcass over him, and laid you on top of him, and I told him not to kill you.
Tony doesn't even fucking like you.
The only reason why Tony ever went to next level is because of me. The only reason why Tony came to TW was because of me. Tony actually likes me. He calls you a mark.
Yeah. So, whatever. Not what he tells me. Nobody fucking likes you, Matt. I've lost bookings because I'm your fucking friend, and that's the fucking.
Well, you should lose bookings, but not because you're my friend.
Yeah.
All
I know is that fucking Anthony Trevino is 100% right about everything he ever fucking said about you.
Anthony Trevino. Anyways, shout out to Agua and Anthony Trevino. And why would you even bring his name up on the show?
Because I agree with him. I'm fucking Team Trevino now.
Maybe he'll book you.
I hope.
Maybe he'll book you over there.
Hopefully.
Maybe he'll book you and CJ, since CJ's the only guy that's any good.
That's probably true.
But CJ can't hear very well.
You can't wrestle very well. So
yeah, but you can't. I'd rather be able to hear properly than not be able to wrestle very well. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, the pleasure was all yours.
Later, Marks.